The Toronto real estate market and the GTA real estate market has been on a wild ride so far in 2022. After a hot, scorching period to start out the year with record low interest rates, record high demand, and record low supply, we saw the Bank of Canada, in tune with the rest of the world, increase interest rates 5 consecutive times, and now we're looking at a totally different market. How has the market reacted after each consecutive rate hike? But chiefly, how has the buying side, how have buyers reacted with regards to each consecutive rate hike year to date at the time of recording of this video, September 27th. To gauge that, we're going to take a look at showings and offers so far this year. That and much more. Hello everyone, this is Sam from SaberiSixRealEstate and Remax Wiltron Realty Inc. As always, back with another video for you guys here today. If you're new to the channel, welcome to the channel. On this channel, I like to discuss all things Toronto and GTA real estate market, buyer advice, seller advice, market trends, market facts, market news, building reviews, and so much more. So feel free to find my contact information on the screen and in the description box. If you have any further questions, feel free to get in touch with me. And if you want to do a little bit of your own due diligence, of course, before you do get in touch with me, feel free to just find my Google reviews, go through them, the feedback my past and present clients have provided from working with me. So there is this interesting analytics tools that I have access to as part of Broker Bay, which allows me to see a lot of interesting data that is not usually covered by other databases. Namely, the number of offers and showings in a given period of time, whether that period of time is a week, a month, or for the last 365 days. So for this video, I thought, why not take a look at how the market has responded after each consecutive rate hike so far in the GTA. Now, one thing I want to mention is that Broker Bay is not completely exhaustive, but it's pretty damn close. Now, thus far, the Bank of Canada has hiked rates 5 times: March 2nd, April 13th, June 1st, July 13th, and September 7th. But before we take a look at the periods between the rate hikes and how buyers have reacted, let's take a look at what was happening before the first rate hike of March 2nd. So as you guys can see, this is the period of January 1st to March 1st. And on the top here, just to introduce you shortly, we have our categories, whether it's new listings, sold, showings, offers, average price, and average days on market. Now, in terms of listings, new listings, and sold numbers, and average price, and days on market here, although this is a pretty accurate database to gauge those figures, I personally think MLS is better. Where this database really shines is through the showings category and the offers. And here, this is not a misprint. Between the period of January 1st, within the Greater Toronto area for all property types, from condominiums to semis to fully detached to condo townhouses, there was about 506,000 showings. This doesn't mean there were 506,000 buyers, just to be clear, but 506,000 showings, which, if we look at the year over year, represented an increase for the GTA area as implicated by this yellow orangish graph. Now here we are currently on the weekly view, but we can switch to daily as well. But in my opinion, for our purposes, the weekly is much more adept and better at telling us what we need to know. On the weekly view, showings really peaked between January 30th and February 6th at 71,000 showings. And that period, funny enough, is where my properties that I was selling on the behalf of my sellers got the most attention. Obviously, it's not an anomaly. Here we see that it was the case with the market. But nonetheless, on a slow week, we were really seeing around 55,000, 56,000 here, 61,000 shown. And offers were relatively high as well. Out of 500,000 showings, there was 45,000 offers made. And unlike the showings figure, offers peaked this week between February 6th and February 13th at 6,851 offers made. And you have to understand, this was a period of time where everything on the market was for bidding. I was selling 9 out of 10 of my listings for bidding. Properties were getting upwards of 8 to 11 offers. Some even got upwards of 20 to 25 offers. Buyers were submitting offers left and right. Year over year, this represented for offers even a bigger increase than we saw with showing, as once again indicated by this orange line. But this is before the first rate hike. How did the market react after the first rate hike, which was March 2nd? Now, if we look at the period of March 2nd to April 12th, because April 13th was the second rate hike. Off the bat, before we go through the numbers, obviously this is a shorter, more condensed period than the 1st of January to the 1st of March. So naturally, even if it was still a hot market, the numbers are going to be less. But we see showings did obviously come down some. Nonetheless, I was still actively involved in this market, and the buyers I told to wait in January and February, some of them actually did end up taking action in March. I exclusively worked with sellers January and February. March is where I started trickling in some buyers. In this period, we have about 394,000 showings. The showings, even for the condensed period, stayed up high. That is to say, after the first rate hike, between the first and the second, showings did not diminish all that much. This is once again a shorter period, and 394,000, as we see here, is still pretty relatively high. And year over year, showings were more even as compared to 2021. But what diminished more than showings was actually offers. Here we see for the period, offers was nearly cut in half, whereas showings was not nearly cut in half. Offers were still high, for instance, where we see the first week of March, you're looking at 6,016 offered. But this means slowly and steadily, buyers were still looking at the same pace, even maybe a higher pace than the first couple of months of 2022, but taking less action. Now let's take a look at the period of April 13th to the last day of May, because obviously the third rate hike occurred June 1st. Here we see much of the same story. At 386,000 showings still diminishing because now the period of time is longer, but nonetheless not diminishing at a demonstrative pace. Buyers were still actively involved in the market here. However, offers dipped once again to the point where offers actually diminished year over year for the first time. At 21,000 offers made, close to 22,000 because it's 21,800. Nonetheless, we see during peak weeks, there was 3,300 offers made, less than year over year, where in the same time last year, there was around 4,400. Whereas showings was pretty much on par with where we were the year prior. Now from June 1st to July 13th, obviously thus far the biggest rate hike, is going to be obviously the shortest period. So keep that in mind. But now let's take a look at June 1st to July 12th. We see that showings remained relatively high, nonetheless lower at 294,000 here, whereas offers kept plummeting. Here in this period, we were looking at offers of 14,600 to be exact. Now keep in mind, this is before, once again, the July 13th hike, which was the biggest rate hike at 100 basis points. For this period, showings are around 370,000, but once again, you have to keep in mind, it is a larger number, but it's over the course of a longer period of time. June 1st to July 12th is a shorter period of time, obviously, so you're gonna have less showings as opposed to July 13th to September 6th. And as you can see, after this 100 basis point increase by the Bank of Canada, the year over year increase of showings has diminished quite a bit as well. And of course, we already know the story with offers. Offers dropped to around 17,000 in this period. Now we're in September 27th, only 20 days from the most recent rate hike, so I'm not gonna show you those numbers because it's such a small sample size. But anecdotally, no longer going based upon the analytics, I can say that my listings have actually gotten more showings in September as opposed to August. And why is that? Well, I think supply is so limited. What inventory is out there is being seen by buyers. Even though there are less buyers actively involved in the market, more tenants involved in the rental market. Thus far, my experience on the selling side has been a decent amount of attention for my listings. Similarly, I see it also from the other side of the spectrum as well, from the buyer's perspective, because right now I'm working with more buyers, way more buyers than I am sellers. I got all my sellers out the way because it was a great time to sell. Beginning of the year, upwards of March maybe. The sellers I'm working with right now are people who have no choice to sell, or people who have purchased in the 80s and 90s and it makes very little difference. And once again, they need to sell for personal life reasons such as retirement, downsizing. Even though I am working with sellers in today's market, I'm way more actively involved with buyers, and we're going on more showings than we did in August. September, from my anecdotal experience, once again, has seen an uptick from August in terms of activity. Anyways, let me know if you found that data fascinating or interesting. I found it very fascinating. As always, let me know if you have any further questions. Feel free to drop your questions in the comments or get in touch with me with the contact information in the description box. Thank you very much for watching. Feel free to subscribe, comment, rate, and review to show your support. And yes, as always, thank you for watching. Stay safe and stay tuned. Thank you.